Deborah, and I did my level 3 with Astranti Connect, and I did the live online version of the course. First of all, I'd say the atmosphere is welcoming, really supportive. I think very encouraging also. So I always felt that the tutor worked really, really hard to bring us all in together. I never felt that I couldn't ask a question. I always felt that my questions are answered really well. And if they hadn't been, then my tutor would come back and sort of clarify for me. And I always felt that my tutors were very professional, knowledgeable, and also approachable. So each session started with a check-in, and they were invaluable because they looked at sort of what had happened in the week since that we'd started, and that really set the tone really for our group working together. And then we'd have our first sort of structured session really. So that might be a theory-based session where we might be that is tutor-led, and then we'd all discuss things as the whole group. It could be also personal development group, which were just absolutely outstanding because it really led to great self-awareness and where you were, where you have been and where you're going. We may have a tutorial, so that would be in a personal breakout group with our tutor. And then we'd also have skills sessions as well. So again, because it was live online, we'd have a breakout group, we'd have our skills session, our feedback within it, and then come back to the main group and talk about sort of what were the key issues there. A lot of things that were theory-based were led by the outstanding workbook that we had. So we'd be completing that as we went as well. And then we'd use that in our homework as well. And then at the end of the day, we'd have a checkout. So similarly as the check-in, so where are we sitting right now? Has the day brought anything up for us that we might want to work with outside of session? But we always made sure we sort of left in good, safe hands, really. So, this course really does run alongside CPCAB, so it's very, very structured in its aims and its delivery. I think what you can expect is, number one, it's well organised. The resources are absolutely outstanding. I was blown away by the workbook. It really, really helped me. Also, there's the sort of online support hub type thing, so an online library. So you get not just access to your tutor during the day, but say, for example, you've missed a session or you really wanted to look at it more in depth. There's online videos and presentations there, which are really, really good. Tutors guide you really well through sort of like the whole assessment process as well, because that can feel really overwhelming at first. There's a huge number of criteria you have to meet, but that's really well, you walked through it really, really well. And I never felt massively overwhelmed by that because I was walked through so well. The assessment record is just absolutely outstanding again, so it's really, really well laid out. You can see how you can meet those criteria. You can, you're following it all the time. The tutor's following it to make sure you're on track as well. The learning reviews, again, that you're asked to do, really, really well structured. So there's no real sort of grey areas about what you need to do. It's really, really, really clear. What I also say is that the feedback you get from your tutor, certainly my tutor is very, very in-depth, not only looking at the things I did well, but the more constructive feedback as well. But I never felt criticised. I felt really supported all the way through. And I think it provides, if you're going to go on to level 4, really, really good foundation for that. And also just those sort of how to have a really good relationship with other people. So just going into your normal life or within your current working mode. So I think it's just a really nice comprehensive course that equips you for your next stage, whatever that may be. Yeah, so obviously it's a CPCAB course, so it's going to follow their 7 processes. But then within that, so you start off by sort of reintroducing to counselling again and the skills that go alongside that. So it was a really nice sort of summary of what we've done on level 2 and a really nice sort of moving you through. But with that, things become much more in depth. So for example, we then looked at agency settings and what it's like to work in agencies and what it's like as a counsellor. So within that, looking at how the ethical framework fits within that agency, how you might handle some ethical issues that might occur within that agency, because it might be different between agencies. Working within their own, as I just said, policies and procedures, and then the legal frameworks that we've got within that. So we did that, and we actually did a whole presentation on that. So that was really, really useful. We had to do a lot of research. And then looking at the counselling relationship itself. So we spent a long time with this, because obviously that's the essence of what we're trying to learn. So within that, we looked at, so how do we contract? How do we assess? How do we form those really good boundaries within the skills session? We looked at the whole then referral process. So if you realise that you're not proficient, what do you then do? What does that look like? We looked at in quite a lot of depth sort of the actual counselling session itself. So is there a good beginning, a good middle, and a good end, and how endings are so important. That's a key thing I got from level 3. Your ending has to be really safe, really safe. We also then looked at difference and diversity both within our own group, which was really interesting, and then sort of society as a whole, and then what that means for counselling and how it can impact on the counselling sort of process itself. And again, we did, one of our big assignments was on difference and diversity. I learned a huge amount in that, and sort of looking at the huge range of differences there are between people, because I sort of think I just went through life just accepting everything and not really noticing all these differences. We then looked more about using a sort of a user-centred approach, and how to keep that person foremost in front of us and hold them properly. And then something that I absolutely love was looking at sort of common mental health conditions, and then looking at what good positive mental health looks like and how we negotiate that, and also having in the back of our mind proficiency and making sure that you're actually able to work with those conditions or not. And then again, something I really enjoyed was introducing supervision. So we had peer supervision groups, and I just learned so much from my peers within that, and I really valued those sessions. And then finally, towards the end of the course, we sort of looked at the other core theories. So obviously, largely we're working person-centred, but then we looked at cognitive behavioural therapy and psychodynamic, and then looking at how that affects on our personal history and why we are who we are and how we can move forward. And I really enjoyed that. And then sort of right at the end looked at how you could really integrate all these theories together if you're going to be a more intuitive counsellor in the long run, but always having that user-centred and person-centred approach as sort of the bedrock. So it was like a whole story really, but it was far more in-depth than level 2. But as I say, our tutor navigated that process really well for us. I had a really good experience with my tutor. I think we all did within our group. And I would say that the teaching approach was very open, very supportive, very constructive. So if there was an area that you needed to develop on, it was highlighted to you, but in a really non-judgmental but supportive way. I would say our tutor was so knowledgeable, and was really happy to demonstrate some skills to us as well, which I really enjoyed. So there was lots of exemplars used if you didn't quite understand something. Also, it was made really clear that you had support outside session if you needed it. So assessment it feels a lot bigger than level 2, I will say that, first of all. So you have your written assessments, so that could be learning reviews, and your learning reviews are extensive, but again, I will say that they are structured really well with Astranti, so you know exactly what you need to do. Alongside that, you have assignment, 2 formal assignments. So we had a research one and a diversity one. You have presentation to do also, and self-reviews. On the more skills-based things, you then have tutor observations, and also there's peer testimonies as well alongside that. But throughout the process, it's not just like a static assessment. So it's looked at, it's marked, you get feedback on it. There is the opportunity then to listen to that feedback and then to progress further with that. So I would say, whilst it is quite in depth, well, it's very in depth, you are supported along the way with it. Say is be honest with yourself and with the group, and be prepared to be vulnerable, because if you're not, it will be a more difficult journey. Because I think the biggest, alongside all the amazing theory that we learn and the practical skills, one of the biggest things you learn is about yourself. So therefore you have to be open, and go in this with an open mind and just a willingness to accept sometimes you're going to get it wrong, but you are in a really good nurturing environment. So to just go with it. And there's a bit of a cliquey saying, trust in the process. And that's what you have to do. And it can be difficult at times, but you are walked through it, you are supported. I'd also say, ask for help when you need. So don't just sit there thinking, I'm the only one who doesn't understand this, because there will be other people in the group who are feeling exactly the same. What I'd also say is, within your workbook, do it regularly, every week, because when you have to do your self-reviews at the end, this is absolute dynamite for you. It's so helpful. And you also see, I used to look back in my workbook and see the progression I'd made. If I was feeling a bit like, oh, dear me, where am I going with this? I could see my own progression. So that, use your workbook and use it well. I'd also say, use the online resources that are provided. I use those all the time. The presentations are just outstanding. And the other thing I would say is that there's opportunities to attend seminars that are outside of the daily sessions, and they are brilliant. I really enjoyed attending those, and then they're still then stored on the online section, so then you can go back if you've missed one or you wanted to watch something again, you can do that. So I would say, in summary, be open, be flexible, be a bit more bendy, use all the resources that are offered to you, and ask for help if you need it. And finally, that cliquey cliche, just trust in the process and go with it.